Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eddie Francis. I'm your moderator this afternoon for the current student panel, Perspectives on AI. And so, what we're going to do with this panel is we are going to have students on the panel explore their experiences with AI, whether it's on campus or not on campus. And they are going to give their thoughts on AI powered tools that are used for the student experience. My name is Eddie Francis, and I am the host of the Edify podcast. I want to work there. I'm also the principal brand strategist for Edify Ventures, which is a brand strategy consultancy. And so it is my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon. I'm going to introduce you to our panelists in just a little bit, but we all know that AI is happening. It is here, and higher ed is a space where AI is very active, even as its presence is being debated on various campuses. But AI is being used behind the scenes for administrative support, for functions such as student records, scheduling, budgeting, as well as research and support in marketing and communications. But here's the thing, AI is also visible in the form of communication. And the way it's being used is that they're reaching out to students, colleges are, with chatbots, marketing outreach, scheduling appointments, academic advising, and a lot more. Today's panelists are going to give their thoughts about the benefits and challenges of using AI in higher ed. Now, to be clear, we're not talking about academic use. So we're not talking about homework. We're not talking about assignments so much as we're looking at how institutions are using AI to enhance the student experience in any way they want to do so. And our students are going to give us their thoughts about this, but then also they might give us some suggestions about how they think that AI could be better used. And so let me introduce you to our panel. First, we have Emma Kavanaugh. Emma is a special guest on the panel because Emma is a student at Glen Rock High School in New Jersey. Emma, wave to the folks. And then we also have Juwan Johnson. He's a recent graduate of the University of New Orleans, Gold Privateers, with a degree in marketing. He is a freelance film producer as well. Juwan, give us a wave, please. And then there is Shelby Moquin. She's a recent graduate of Drake University. Okay, I'm sorry, Shelby. When I saw Drake University, all I could think was Drake. All right, so she is a recent graduate of Drake University with a degree in communication. She's also a marketing associate at Element 451. She works with us on Enrollify as well. So, Shelby. And then there is Wes Moran. He is a student at Boston University, majoring in public relations, advertising, and applied communications. And also, Wes, you are interning or you are working at MIT? You are interning at MIT. All right, excellent. So, panelists, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And so, here is the first question. When you hear that AI is transforming college campuses, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Is it excitement? Is it concern? Is it something else? Is it a mixture? What is your first response? And any one of you can pick it up and run with it, but not everybody at once. So Wes, I'm going to start with you. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I would say that it's definitely a mixture of both concern and excitement. I notice more excitement among students. I think for us, we kind of see it as a really valuable resource, a way for us to better organize our thoughts or use it as, a way to go through data sets and stuff like that, where professors seem to be a bit more concerned about it in terms of like plagiarism and generative AI used to write up essays and do projects and stuff on our behalf. So I think there is a mix of both excitement and concern, but I think you're absolutely right that AI is here. It's happening. I've noticed a huge transformation just in the time that I've been at Boston University from my freshman year to now my senior year, with AI just becoming increasingly more common among students and just systems within the school using AI. So yeah, I would say it's a mix of concern and excitement, but I would say it kind of varies depending on the demographic you're asking.
Okay, excellent. Anybody want to pick it up from there?
I've been. I would say I am just truly very excited that there's this amazing resource out there for students to now use, as well as professors and institutions to use on the back end, or professors to use like for grading. I'd say I'm very, very excited. I don't have a lot of concern, I feel like. It's just an amazing tool that I think you're right is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And I think that institutions that are taking the steps to help educate their students about AI are truly preparing them for the future and for joining the workforce after graduation.
Okay. And Shelby, I'm going to come back to you in just a little bit because I want to hear a little bit more about how you're using it on the Element 451 end. Juwan, do you have any thoughts by any chance about whether or not it concerns you, gets you, hopeful or excited or anything?
I'm kind of with Wes on this. It's sort of like the in between of like excited and like concerned, mainly because like not to kind of sound like old head in a sense, but like when the internet came about, right? People were like, how is this going to affect relationship between people and so forth? And I know we're probably going to get into this later. At UNO, we had like a little chat system that would text us like, "Hey, Juwan, middle semester midterms on the way. How are you feeling?" And it kind of felt, I guess, weird and disconnecting that the like random, AI robot was texting me asking how I'm feeling. Like I kind of was getting disconnected from the situation. Like I'd rather hear from a person, but I kind of understand at the same time, like UNO's resources, like they don't have enough people to text every student. So like I'm excited because it does like give you opportunities to find out things you normally would. But at the same time, I felt a little bit, I don't know, like concerned about the connect between people and me and like administrative on my campus.
Okay. Thank you so much. Emma, we're going to go with your story because we have got to hear this story. Again, Emma is a student who's in high school right now. So Emma, tell us about an interaction that you had with AI.
Of course. So I started my podcast with my dad. It's called High School to Higher Ed, a father-daughter perspective. And we were going through the emails that I was receiving from colleges. And one of them was a liberal arts school. And I'm not really interested in the liberal arts. So I decided to click on it because it was asking me to audition. I was brought to their website and I couldn't really find information on whether someone my age could audition or not. So I decided to use the chatbot feature on their website, and they didn't really give me a straight answer, and they couldn't tell me what they were what I was looking for. They were referring me to like other places, and it just wasn't giving me a straight answer.
And so what were you thinking? Because we do have a question in the chat for Brett, and he's saying that he would be interested in hearing whether or not you feel the interactions with the schools and their AI tools are truly authentic. So what was your feeling based on what you just told us, Emma?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like a good response. It made me feel like less about the school, and I definitely don't really want to go to that school anymore just because of that experience. And I think that like using AI, it can be a really helpful tool, but it needs to be like put in moderation because the human interaction is also very important, especially like looking at schools that I would potentially go to once I graduate.
Yeah. So I want to leave this an open question as well. How has AI changed the way you interact with campus services like registration, advising, financial aid? Do you feel the interactions are improving, or do you feel something about these interactions may be a bit more challenging? Anybody who wants to take it, please feel free to take it.
Yeah, I can bounce it. I echo what Emma said. I've also had numerous experiences where, I've been directed on Boston University web pages to use the chat box feature, and it's AI generated, and you're trying to talk, and you're just like, speak to, real associate, speak to a real person, like just trying to get there. And so I think that can make it seem a little inauthentic. Like it seems like it's just trying to, divert you away from bothering the people in the office. I think I have had positive experiences where it's been really easy like this. If there is an easy solution, like using that chat box, it can just pop up with the link of where I need to go. And then it was so much easier than waiting on hold on the phone for 10 minutes. I just was directed there. But there are certain instances where obviously you're looking for a real human to human connection to share your story, share your issue, and they're going to be a lot more understanding than AI is capable of being. So I agree with Emma that it can be used as a really useful tool because I think it can be supportive, in getting students in touch with different resources on campus. But I also think that, I don't know, it can be a little bit upsetting or frustrating if that's your only option and it takes you forever to be able to get a hold of a real person.
So Wes, I want to follow up really, really quickly because there's something that you said, and I started to wonder about this. Did you at some point, when it became frustrating, you kind of alluded to whether or not people wanted to be bothered or something like that. And would you say that at some point when it becomes frustrating, you're feeling, okay, wait a minute now, if you don't want to be bothered or if you don't really want to do this, then, just let us know. Is it that or is it something else? At any point, did that kind of thought creep into your head or no?
Yeah, I would say a little bit. I think I found more value in trying to do like in-person meetings with folks on campus. Like I had an issue with financial aid earlier this semester, and I was originally kind of going through like a chat box thing, and I was like, this is not going to be helpful to this. So I just decided to quit it when I walked into the office the next day, and I instead went about it that way. But I've also had issues where like I've reached out just asking kind of a question about registration deadlines, and it was able to direct me really easily. Just like a web page that gave me all the answers that I was looking for. So I think it's fair that in some cases it's like it can filter out, questions that maybe can be directed and not, spend so much time where these advisors or folks, can be spending it elsewhere. But I also think that it can be tricky when that's like the go-to response, because there are obviously some like really valid questions and conversations that need to have human to human interaction in order to be, helpful.
Okay. Shelby, I'm going to pick your brain really quickly. As somebody who works at a company that really tries to help colleges and universities streamline their processes using AI, in a world where we want AI to be a useful tool, how important is it, or where do you see a balance between AI being used as a tool and human interaction, especially when you look at it behind the scenes? As a former student, have you at any point thought to yourself, it would be really cool if not only do we have the AI too, but somehow some human interaction to balance this out? Has any of that come to mind for you?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like having the right amount of AI and the right amount of human connection is crucial, especially as tech and higher ed both evolve. I'm going to say that I got my bachelor's degree completely online, and I felt such a strong human connection with all of my professors and all of my peers, even though I fully was online, just because I knew Drake, my institution, prioritized like connecting with me as a person, and rather just not sending me to a chatbot. Or I didn't really deal with a ton of chatbots since I was an online student. I had to kind of navigate that process a little bit differently. But they were an institution that for sure prioritized keeping in the human connection or keeping the human in the loop, even with the growth and the explosion of AI.
There's a really good question in the chat from Ted, and any one of you can answer this. Were you ever handed off from AI to a human, and how did that transition go? Can anybody answer that? Does anybody want to take that? Wes, you were nodding. Did you have an experience, or is that what you just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has to do with what I just talked about, but I would say it was one of those experiences where it kind of like asks you almost again to filter out kind of what the issue is that someone's going to the chat box for. And I was able to provide like context for what's going on, explain my situation. And then I had a real person contact me over the phone a few hours later. And because I was able to like provide all that context of my issue and everything, they kind of knew what was going on and knew how to go about that issue. So it was helpful in that sense that, I was able to use that to kind of provide them with what was going on and give them the time to figure it out and then get back to me. I guess AI kind of served as that middleman there.
Joanne, I'm going to ask you a question because you and I both being New Orleanians, one thing we value in New Orleans, and this really permeates throughout universities, and I know UNO, I know Joanne's university very well. We value the human experience a lot in New Orleans. And so for you, Joanne, where does the line get drawn? I mean, at what point do you say, okay, I don't need to talk to a person? At what point for you, though, will you say, no, I would really rather talk to a person. I would rather ask a person this question and have some AI tool respond to me. Do you have a line for that?
Realistically, it's kind of when I don't know what the question is I want to ask. Because a lot of times, when they direct us to like chat box, like at least for me, the situations of like I didn't know what I wanted to ask, and how can generative AI answer a question that that I don't even have like a question for. And a lot of times it'd be easier to sit down and talk with a person and kind of they can guide you through it, because most as far as I can tell, most like generative AI that universities are using are very like low end. They're not really adapting with you, or they don't have all of the necessary information to answer what you need. You know, to do that, they have to go into certain private details and so forth. And it's just easier for like me to like to kind of go back to West, like go into my financial aid office and sitting down with the financial aid advisor and be like, hey, I have this issue. I'm not sure what to do. Can you like give me every resource you know? And then go from there. Same with advisors and so forth. And yeah, just really as that when I don't know what to ask, because that's really like my line right there. If it's very simple, I like, you know, as Wes said, when is the deadline for this chat box? Something that like is visible like on found websites you can find. That's what you should be asking chatbot stuff, not stuff like when am I going to get this and so forth. That's financial aid. Yeah.
No, I think, Jawan, that you make a great point, and I'm going to offer this to the audience, is that I'm someone who has worked at 3 universities where a big part of the culture of the student body was first generation students. And in a lot of these cases, these were students who had no idea what questions to ask. And so they didn't know what they didn't know. And they really did need someone to sit down with them and guide them through a process. So, Jawan, you make an excellent point there. And I think that's something to really think about as people are designing AI, as they are prompting AI and that sort of thing. I'm going to read something really quickly from Edward in the chat, because the folks in the audience are really coming up with some good questions. And so, Edward, this is a great question. He wrote that I manage, and keep losing it. There we go. I manage our chatbot, and I get a lot of questions regarding degree programs from prospective students. Is it that prospective students feel more comfortable asking the bot versus browsing the website? Is it an ease of use thing? Is it I'd rather do anything than call someone? I see course offering inquiries, but these are typically from visiting students looking to knock out a course during the summer or winter. So, Emma, you might be in a good position to answer that. What are your thoughts about what Edward just asked?
I think especially with like me and people that go to my school, we're looking for like generally pretty quick answers. And so we'll look on the website, and if we can't find it quickly, we might go to the chatbot. And some people aren't as comfortable like calling someone because we're not really used to it in my generation. So I think the chatbot is very helpful for situations like that, because if you don't want to look on the website and you don't want to call, it's like the perfect in between where you can get that information quickly.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts about that, especially when you think back to looking at colleges and universities? Any other thoughts from anyone else on that?
I think, yeah, it's just people, as our human nature is, we don't want to dig super hard for information. And so going to that chatbot to ask it that question when we know we can get that answer like right away is what's appealing to it, rather than spending 10 minutes on hold or 10 minutes on the phone with someone when it could be resolved instantly by asking that chatbot.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about student interactions with one another. Do you think that AI has impacted how students connect with each other on campus, whether that's through social media, student organizations, or study groups? Any thoughts on that?
I don't know that I've noticed a difference because I feel like my college experience has kind of been, as I mentioned earlier, like my freshman and sophomore year, AI really didn't exist like in the way that it does right now. There's been a huge increase just in the last year and a half, 2 years. And I really don't know that I've noticed a huge change in the way that students interact with each other because of AI. Like I found that co-curriculars and social situations also exist really exactly the same as they did prior to AI, but I can see how it would impact tutoring because I think, or like study sessions, because I found that AI has been a really valuable like research tool. And kind of just going back to that last question, like it is just that instant gratification that you can just type in a question and it gives you the answer and like resources and everything rather than having to scroll through websites and different tabs and everything. And so I found myself actually, and professors even saying this, like instead of the old expression like, oh, Google that, now people are like, oh, ChatGPT now, like ask ChatGPT things and all that, which is so interesting that language has kind of shifted and we're seeing the new wave in that. And so I can see how like maybe asking questions or getting tutors or going to a TA may have changed, because now you can just go to ChatGPT and it just lays out the answer for you very directly, rather than, before, where you had to go through Google and maybe search through your textbook, etc. And that can be a lot more time consuming. But I don't know that I've noticed, other than that, kind of a change in social interaction because of AI.
You know what? I have to ask y'all this. Have you ever asked AI a question, and when you got the answer, you thought to yourself, who wrote this? Have you ever thought that? I mean, can you talk about a situation, whether it had to do with school or anything else, where you just had to wonder who exactly who was the person behind that answer?
I can take this one. I use AI for a lot of developing social copy, and sometimes I put in my prompts, I put in what I want, and then I read it. I'm like, this is not what I asked. Like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. And then but there are sometimes that it gives me like good bits and pieces of where, I'm like, okay, I can take some of this and then play around and tweak it. But I think a lot of that goes back to prompting and learning how to prompt AI correctly, because that is a whole nother thing that you can dive into, and is just knowing if you want to get what you want out of AI, you have to know how to ask it and how to ask it correctly.
That's a really, really good comment. As a matter of fact, let me bounce that comment to something that Brittany just wrote in the chat. And she wrote, as a student, if there had to be a short, she writes in all caps, a short, best practices for AI assistance section with questions best suited for the chatbot versus what you might want to discuss with someone in person, would you read it? Would you read it? Everybody, I'm going to go round robin on this. I'll start with you, Juwan. Would you read it?
Yeah, because me and you talked before, but I didn't have much experience with AI really till like my last semester of school. And I kind of just used it when I was doing like my research papers to find information very quickly, like so forth. And a lot of times I'll ask it a question and it'll give me the same answer as the one I asked before. And I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? How should I phrase this question to get the best results? Because as I said, a lot of times you don't know what you should ask or can't ask, because you assume it's going to, like, I guess our understanding of AI right now, we assume it's going to like give us all the answer, but that's really not what it is. You have to be very like concise and specific, or as I know what the best question to ask is.
Yeah. And I'll go to you. If there had to be something that said best practices for AI assistance, is that something that you would be interested in?
I think I would definitely read it because it would help me like use the AI feature, but I also would need to like have like human interactions too in order to ask my follow-up questions or more specific questions that ChatGPT or any other AI might not be able to answer.
All right. What about you, Shelby?
I'm for sure would read it. I think learning how to prompt AI is super, super important. And sometimes we necessarily don't know where to start. And like AI didn't really make a huge presence until like my senior year, my last semester. And so it kind of just shut up and I was like, oh, how do I use this thing? And what do I do? And something like that would have been very, very helpful to read at the time.
Okay. What about you, Wes?
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be helpful. And I think it's important that short part, because I think it does, again, lean into kind of like the instant gratification that our generation requires. So I think that, yeah, if it was like short and just handy, I think that would be really helpful when I read it. But I also think that there are ways in which that could actually be built into like the chat box or AI assistant like system itself. I've seen some examples where it's kind of like asked again, as I mentioned earlier, for like context and asking what you're looking for and what question you're asking. And it's able to like point you in the direction. And so I think even building it into the section, so it can be like, we think that, or you say what you're looking for, what question you have, and then, it says, we think that this would be best suited for like an in-person consultation. Please reach out to this person or continue in the chat until like a live representative is able to talk to you. Or it can just point you in the direction of a website. So I think there's ways to like really streamline that into the entire process itself.
Yeah. And so, Wes, let me stick with you for a quick second, because Miranda just asked a really interesting question in the chat. Would it help with AI frustration if an easy opt-out was always available for those situations that you just want to talk to a person? It sounds like that might be a yes for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Because it's a little worse when you're stuck in that like never ending, just like giving you the wrong answers and like just not answering your question at all. And like you have no idea how to reach an actual person. That was my experience last time where I literally just stopped. I just logged out of the conversation and walked into the office the next day because it was easier. So I think if there was an option that was, yeah, just said like opt out, speak to live representative, whatever it may be. I think that would absolutely be helpful.
What about you, Joanne? Would you want an opt-out option?
Yeah, no, I think so. I kind of, I don't think this is necessarily AI, but I had a situation, a lot of like companies, like when you call, they use like the call service and you can never reach a person. And like, it's similar like that when using chat boxes. Like, I'm like, can I speak to somebody? I'm like, no. And it'll just hang up on me. And each time you call, it never directs you to a person. I think that's terrible. So in situation with chat box and I love them, like, hey, I don't want to do this. Can you connect, like actually?
Yeah. And what about you, Shelby? Would you opt out? Would you want the opt-out option?
I for sure would. I think even just like, I think in terms of customer service, like if I'm trying to return a package and I can't reach who I'm supposed to, I just want to talk to a human sometimes when all these automated voices aren't giving me what I want. So I think I for sure would want the opt-out feature.
All right. And what about you, Emma?
I agree. I think that ChatGPT or the other AIs can be very helpful, but sometimes they just can't answer your question. You need to be able to like see like a human to be able to answer your question.
Right. We have a question from Brian. Oh, the great Brian Piper. Hey, Brian. So we have a question from Brian. Have any of you used AI as a tutor to help you understand information from your classes? You're nodding, Wes.
Yes, absolutely. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, kind of as like that, ChatGPT or AI tools really can serve as like a studying tool. I've had times where, there's been passages in a textbook or an article that I've been reading that I just do not understand. It's going over my head. Like it just does not make sense to me. I've tried reading it. And then I've copied and pasted it into ChatGPT and I'm like, please explain this to me, summarize this for me. And it comes back with like a pretty short answer. Like it hits all the important points. And it just condenses it and makes it a little bit more understandable. So I've used it in that way, for sure.
I just started reading a book like that. The language is very academic, and I'm just going, whoa, let me look this word up. So what about anyone else? Have any others of you use AI as a tutor to help you understand information from your classes?
Yeah, I've used it for math in the past, and it's not as helpful for math because it gives like, it'll explain it to you, but it also gives like different ways of doing it than necessarily what your teacher or whoever is teaching you, your tutor, like your real tutor, is telling you to do. Because I think everyone has like a different way of doing certain math, so it's not as helpful like math. But I could definitely see how it's helpful for English or anything else.
Okay, Shelby, you were about to answer.
I haven't used it as a tutor in the past, but what I have used it as is just a space to like organize my ideas for assignments. So I got an assignment and I was like, okay, I know I want this in it and this in it. And then I would sometimes just plug it in and then it would give me like, the title, or it would just give me a better structure. I used it as more of a space just to like outline and help organize my ideas, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have another question, and this is a very interesting question that also speaks to being able to feel your college or your university as a community. But what role do you think AI should play in shaping a more inclusive campus experience? Are there ways it could help students feel more connected or understood by their institution? I know that one's a thinker. That one's a thinker.
Yeah, I have a thought on this. And I also noticed a question in the chat from Molly where she asked, like, is there ways that colleges can use AI that they're not using right now that would be helpful? And I think my answer also kind of relates to that, because I think there are ways that AI can be used to really help students. Like my thought process, and Eddie, I know we've talked about this, is that I think that AI would be invaluable in a course registration setting. I'm currently going through like registering for the spring semester for next year. This weekend, I'll have my registration time. And I'm sitting here now going into my final semester, realizing that I don't have all my general education requirements completed, even though I thought they had been completed. And just the process for checking that and staying up to date with that can be really complicated when you're trying to balance your major requirements, your minor requirements, general education requirements, prerequisites, in what order that's going to come in, as well as just, fun classes that you want to take and experience that you have in and out of the classroom. And so now me and a bunch of my friends have reached, our final registration, and we're realizing that this is stressful. We're realizing that we're maybe a little bit more behind than we thought we were going to be. And so we were actually just talking last night at a birthday party dinner that I was having with my friends, because we're all going through this, about the fact that we really think that AI would be helpful in this instance, where, from your freshman year, it could set you up with, okay, if this is your major, these are the classes that you need to take. These are the general education requirements that those are going to fulfill. These are the prerequisites that are going to lead to this. And it can really help you kind of organize your schedule. And I think that in some ways that's what advisors do right now. But I found that my advisors have been a lot more helpful in kind of guiding you on a more personal level, where that side of things, like organizing your classes and everything, has been more on you as the student. And of course, you're coming into college as an 18-year-old. You have no idea. So you'll change majors. You'll end up taking classes that you never thought you would take, or not taking classes that you thought you were going to take. And so I just think that it could be really helpful to have AI there from the start to really kind of guide that registration process and set you up for success from the very beginning.
Okay. Does anyone else have a response to it being a more inclusive environment? And thank you for bouncing back to Molly's question, Wes, because I had my eye on that question as well. Or does anyone else have an answer to Molly's question is there a way that colleges are not using AIs that any of you wish colleges were using? Imagine a world.
Kind of piggybacking off of Wes, I feel like as an online student, I hated registration. It was so hard for just to figure out what I was doing because I wasn't on campus in person. Whereas if I got frustrated, I could go walk, to the next building and go see my advisor and go figure out what was happening. I either had to wait like the 2 to 3 days for someone to answer my email. So I feel like having that chatbot or having an AI feature that helps set your students up for success, tells them what they need to register for, that is instant, and that's what it gives them instantly. I feel like that would be super, super beneficial for online students.
All right. Emma, do you want any response at all? It's okay if you don't. It's fine. Let me ask you this, though, because I want to come back to you, Shelby, because you told me a story, and I don't necessarily want to go into this story, but you told me a story about how there were a couple of institutions that you interacted with, and they had a real issue with AI. They were pretty dead set against using AI in certain ways. What if I were to tell you, any one of you, and Shelby, I'll start with you, but what if I were to tell you that there was an institution that said, you know what, we are not going to do this AI thing. If students have questions that they need answered, that's what we hire people for. The people need to answer the questions. And, you just see that they're rejecting AI in any way, and they're just depending completely on the people to do any and every single thing that needs to be done. Do you see that institution as maybe, let me not put that into what you're thinking. But what do you think? If there were an institution that said, no, we're rejecting this whole AI thing, what are your thoughts about that? Any one of you?
I think they're making it harder on themselves a little bit. And maybe their fear is coming from a place of, I know it's a genuine concern that people are like, oh, if we use AI, it's going to take away people's jobs. But
take away jobs, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instead, think about if you were to use AI, and you also need someone to manage these chatbots and create these chatbots and create these programs. So you need someone to manage that. So I think instead of AI taking away that, I think it's also maybe creating opportunities and jobs for someone to manage that. I also think if institutions aren't taking the time to educate their students about AI and how it's going to be used in the future or post-grad, they're doing their students a huge disservice by just not recognizing that it's a thing.
Okay. Juwan, you were about to answer?
It was sort of, to agree with Shelby and kind of piggyback off West. There's not enough people to student ratio. So there's a lot of times, as they were talking about, how you need you really can't get the time with your advisor, or your advisor is so busy they can't give you the correct information. So it'd be great for like to having something do it for you. And I kind of, to as I said, to piggyback off, I don't see an institution succeeding without like, because I my last semester I had this marketing professor, and he was doing his best to push AI like as part of the curriculum in our business program, because he was like, hey, this is the next wave. And there was a lot of older professors like that had tenure, like, hey guys, they just really didn't want to learn. He was like, this is next step. Students should know this. And it's kind of showing the kind of rate, I feel like the rate of like students that they don't know this information going to workforce. I really don't know too much. And it's becoming very pivotal that like I need to learn as fast as possible. So I don't see any success like if they just,
Okay. Wes, Emma, any response? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Wes.
Sorry, just quickly. I honestly think I agree with like the points that have been made, because I think that you do kind of notice this difference between older professors and younger professors. I think there is a bit of fear in AI from a lot of the older like tenured professors. And I've noticed that it seems a little like out of touch, because I think that AI is just so accessible right now, and like students can access it, outside of the school, like just in their own personal devices and lives. And so I think ignoring the fact that AI is going to be part of the education system going forward is kind of wrong, because it's just going to be part of it. And I think it's just natural. It's here, as we've established. And so I think that it's important that, that education is more catered towards it a little bit now.
I want to add something to, the thought of AI being inclusive. And I'm coming from the angle of having been an African-American student at a predominantly white university. And there are times when there are some pretty specific cultural questions that I have. I'll dump it into AI and I'm going, well, that didn't work. they are not speaking my language. Whoever the gremlins are, the AI gremlins are, they're not speaking my language. And so when you think about how AI can be used in a more inclusive way, have any of you given any thought to that? Like, what happens if there's an AI tool that is being used, and it is very clear that AI tool does not consider different types of students, and different types of students having different types of experiences in school? Have any of you given any thought about where inclusion can play a role there? And I know that's kind of a nebulous question, so I do apologize for that. And if not, let me see.
I can say
go ahead, Wes.
I think I've come from kind of a privileged perspective where I haven't really considered that before. But I think that's absolutely a valid point and something to be aware of. I think that as AI kind of becomes more common, that it's important that it represents, different people of different backgrounds and cultures, and like however that may affect AI. I do think that for the most part, I've noticed that AI can be pretty broad. And so I think sometimes it's just not specific enough. Like you'll ask it questions, or you'll ask it to do something for you, and it's just so broad. And so I think that being able to tailor AI to be more specific to the person asking the question and the person using the AI could be really beneficial for a variety of reasons.
So this kind of goes back to our comments a little bit ago about handing off from an AI tool to a human. Does AI need to be more specific, or should it do just enough to push the student to go get help from a human? Any thoughts for anyone?
I feel like in the perfect world, AI would be able to answer every single question you have and give you all the information you need. But right now, I love the idea that AI is serving as almost the middleman between okay, I can provide you with this, this, and this, but then for everything else, you might need to go talk to somebody for it. And I love that, because we're utilizing AI, but then also having that student go talk to an advisor or another person also keeps the human connection element in education.
So, Shelby, let me ask you this, and I often wonder about this. I often wonder, because we've already covered this, where Juwan, you made some excellent points a little earlier, about it's not necessarily that, and I think Shelby, you might have alluded to this too, that it's not necessarily that we're looking for AI to take a bunch of people's jobs. I mean, you're still going to need people to actually program AI, but can you see a world where someone goes to college completely on AI?
I don't know. That's a lot. I would love to feel like in 50 years from now, maybe like the world is so digitized that like you can log in from your computer and you have this own personalized professor that is all AI. Like that would be so cool. But then again, I feel like as humans, we are all a little apprehensive because the foundation of education was built on like connections with people and talking to people and learning from people. So I don't know. That was a good one. That was a hard one.
Anybody else? I mean, do you see a world where you go to college completely on AI, Juwan?
Well, I think I kind of can see it with the sort of newer generations, just that I feel like they're chronically online. And it's funny because I've seen there's like this AI person that they've just been messing around with like famous internet personalities. And like you could talk to that internet personality and it's really like good and responsive enough to like you're having full conversation with it. And it gives back to you like as if it's a person. So I can kind of, if it gets to that point that colleges are picking up, that gets people are a little bit more secure in the idea. I can see it happening probably like not the immediate, like within the next 30 years, like your professor is an AI professor. Like if you're an online student, because a lot of online programs generally are either asynchronous, maybe you do go to class, or it's purely independent. So, if you can, I'd rather like have an AI professor I could talk to than be, purely the independent online student. That gets a little difficult.
Mm. All right, now Emma, you're the one in high school. What do you think?
I agree with Shelby. I think it's interesting that you could see like having a teacher be on an AI, but it definitely loses part of like that what you expect in college to learn from people, meet new people, and have like all these experiences for when you really go into the workforce and are kind of thrown out there even more.
Okay. Wes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a huge component, if not like the biggest component of college for me, has been, personal interactions, both with professors, faculty members, and other students. And so I think that the second that becomes AI, it just loses such an important part of the college experience. And especially for me in the College of Communication at BU, so much of what we do is based on, the real world and kind of forming connections with our professors who have worked in the industry that we're hoping to work in and have those connections. And I've been able to form so many meaningful, connections and networking opportunities for my future career through my professors and through people that I've met. And so I can't imagine how AI would be able to do that, because I just don't think it can. And I also think, at least where we are with AI right now, like AI doesn't have all the answers. And I've seen this thing where it's like everything that AI does is based off of what it has online, which is written by a person and it's coming from a person. And so I think it's interesting to consider the way that like maybe AI could be programmed to just be a professor, but I don't think it would ever be, at least right now, I can't imagine that it would be as helpful or as impactful as a real professor would be.
Mm. So we do have a couple of questions in the chat, and I like these questions. And also a reminder to check out Emma's podcast with her dad, high school to high school. High school to higher ed, a father-daughter perspective, and that is on Enrollify. But Brett had a question. Did your experience with the pandemic impact your view of AI? Anyone can take that.
I would say a little bit. I think it made me I would say the pandemic made me more comfortable with technology and online, platforms, whether it be Zoom or Google or social media sites. I mean, for so long, I was in high school at the time, like everything was online. I was connecting with people virtually, for the most part. And so I think that because of that, just naturally, I feel a little bit more comfortable typing things into AI and trusting ChatGPT to give them good answers and respond effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shelby, you were about to answer?
Yeah, very much the same as Wes. I was in high school when the pandemic happened, and I did my whole senior year online. And then when I made the decision to get my bachelor's online, I felt a little bit more comfortable going into the online program because I had done my senior year online. I was like, okay, I know I can do this. I'll be good at it. Like I felt very comfortable with technology. So same thing, like when I open up Gemini or when I open up ChatGPT, I'm more familiar with it almost, typing in prompts and figuring out what I want to get from it.
Okay. All right. Jawan?
So I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, mainly because I got the experience high school in person. Like I didn't do it during the pandemic, and my first year of college was in person also. And so when the pandemic hit, after like seeing many people every day, I was used to like that idea of going to class, talking to people, even if I didn't know them, like hello, oh, like asking for homework in person and so forth. So when the pandemic hit, I kind of craved it more, and like the human interaction more than like being on Zoom. Like I hated every aspect of being on Zoom because I felt so like disconnecting. If your internet wasn't the best, a lot of times, you get kicked out, you couldn't see anybody, or like there was a lot of there's a lot of factors in real life, but the factors online kind of just exacerbated everything, mainly because like you didn't feel real. Well, at least I didn't. So it was a little out of perspective for me.
Thanks a lot, Juan. That's a great perspective, especially, and this is something I know also from having gone to, having worked at colleges where we had a lot of students who were first gen, a lot of students who came from lower socioeconomic levels. And in a lot of those cases, they couldn't experience anything like AI because of the simple issue with internet connectivity in their areas or something like that, or people in rural areas. So that's a great point to bring up as well, as far as students feeling included in experiences. And we do have 6 minutes, and I'm going to ask this question from Zach. I love this question. Do you want to know when you are engaging with AI versus a human? Anyone can take that.
I feel like yes, for sure. But also with how AI is now, I feel like I'm pretty good at differentiating between whether I can tell if I'm talking to a real person or if I'm talking to a bot. But the little preface, like in the corner that says, oh, this is an AI generated chatbot, that would be nice. So when I get so frustrated sometimes, I can realize, okay, I'm not talking to a real person. There is still another solution to this. So that way I know I can go and talk to somebody else.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Shelby. I think that it's important to differentiate when it's AI and not AI. I think that outside of a higher education context, I think it's important to establish AI literacy and regulations, ensuring that people are aware of when something is AI and isn't. I've seen a lot of misinformation being spread on sites like Facebook using AI, especially ahead of the election. And I think it's important that there be laws that are put in place to note when something is AI and isn't, because that's when AI can get really dangerous and tricky. And I think it's bad when it seems to be taking the role of people, or people are thinking that it's a person. I think that's when it gets a little messy. So yes, I would definitely like to know when I'm engaging with AI versus a human.
Oh, that's interesting. Emma?
I agree, because I think it's really important. I'm very interested in politics and news. I want to be a journalist. But I think it's very important in terms of like mis and disinformation. A lot of it can get spread with like AI images that are like very extreme, and they make people think certain things. And I think that just impacts the way people see politics in this situation. But it can change people's perspectives if they don't realize that this is like an AI generated image or AI generated text, and it's not an actual human.
Yeah, thank you. And what about you, Juwan? Do you want to know when you're engaging with AI versus a human? I can almost guess your answer, but do you want to know?
In situations like they described, yes, but I'm kind of not split, but sort of like if I'm on like Best Buy's website and I'm just asking about my order, I don't really care like if it's AI or human being, like, but as far as like important information, news, like anything that can actually like truly impact my life, I would want to know if it's AI or human for sure.
Yeah. And you bring up customer service with a private company, but based on what you said a little earlier, I'm also thinking about situations like financial aid. I mean, do you want to know then?
if I can get a clear answer and it satisfies me, no. But if it goes to a situation where it really depends on the if it's good enough that it can give me all the answers I need, which is not, then I don't know if it really matters and the information is correct. But if it's a situation like, we go through now, like it's constantly bring you to the ringer where just doesn't have enough information to give you the answer you need, then of course.
All right. Well, thank you. So we have 2 minutes here. I don't know if we can get a minute in, but we're going to see with Ted's question, what is your greatest expectation, wish for schools when it comes to admissions and then using AI tools for that? So we have 2 minutes. Who wants to take that one?
My hope is that admissions continue being a person first process. I think that if college admissions are hoping that students don't use AI to write their college essays and supplemental essays, then I would hope that they don't use AI to review the college essays. I hope they continue using a holistic process, really learning about the people and the individual circumstances at each school, so that admissions can stay person first.
All right. Wes, you're going to get the last word there. So thank you so much. And I want to thank the panelists. They did an excellent job. Emma Kavanaugh, Juwan Johnson, Shelby Moquin, and Wes Moran. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, do not forget to check out Emma's podcast, With Her Dad, High School to Higher Ed, a father-daughter perspective. That is on Enrollify. You're getting all kinds of kudos, panelists, and thank you so much. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your AI Engage virtual summit. I know you will. I know you're going to get a lot of information. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.